G'day hobbyists, Anthony from AOS Coach here, and in this video we're going to be looking at mysterious landscapes within the Age of Sigmar and how you can start incorporating them into your next games. So battling across the mortal realms provides you with an amazing opportunity to fight within a battlefield of unlimited possibilities. From the iron deserts of Shamon, to the underworlds of Shyish, to the bestial and untamed lands of Gur. These are just a few examples of the crazy and wonderful worlds that you can be battling in. To represent these wildly fantastical battlefields, your tabletop scenery can be given one of these mysterious landscapes, and within the 4-page rulebook that is free in Age of Sigmar, you can actually find out a little bit more and kind of roll up to find out what these landscapes and terrain pieces are going to be. So in this video, we're going to break down this a little bit more into detail around what are these mysterious landscapes and how you can start using them to your advantage. So let's begin. Well, the simple answer is that the mysterious landscape rules are on the first page of the 4-page rulebook. It is easy for me to say that these are just some of the rules for you to learn and choose to just do it, but I do recognize that by adding mysterious landscapes into your next game, that it is going to add another set of rules that you'll need to remember. It's also going to make your game a little bit more unpredictable, and you might be concerned it's going to ruin your game. What you are going to find though is that by using mysterious landscape, it's just going to add so much more to your game. It's going to help influence which side of the board you're going to want to go for, because there's actually now something to play for. It's going to influence the way that you deploy. It's going to make you really think about, changing up your deployment to take the most of your scenery. It's also going to make you think about how you use your units. Now, within these dice rolls for mysterious terrains, the same two armies could fight week after week and achieve a different result every time. Why? Because the landscape is changing all the time, and the benefits and the disadvantages are always going to make it an exciting battlefield. So if you're playing a casual game with your friend's house and you're thinking about introducing it to your game, what you're going to see is that, when you move into a match play tournament or even like a local tournament, experienced Age of Sigmar players are going to expect that you use the mysterious landscape rules. On a standard 6x4 table that I'm showing you right here, which is often used for a 2,000 point battle, you're probably going to see between 9 and 12 pieces of terrain on each battlefield. Now, each of these terrain pieces are going to use the mysterious terrain rules, and there are actually 6 different options you can actually kind of get. So what are they? The first one is on a roll of a 1, you have Damned. 2 is Arcane, 3 is Inspiring, 4 is Deadly, 5 is Mystical, 6 is Sinister. So each of these are going to have an immediate effect on your strategy, the way you play the game, and most are beneficial in some degree. So how do you now build those mysterious terrains into your game? So let me use this terrain piece as an example. This is a Sylvaneth Woods. This Sylvaneth Woods is sitting in my deployment zone, and as a free people player, I have a unit of free guild handgunners to the right, as well as you'll see there's a collegiate arcane battle mage just below that to kind of support the handgunners. Now I've strategically put my free guild handgunners within 3 inches of the terrain piece, while my arcane mage is sitting outside of 3. And when we go into the rules, you're going to see why the 3 inches and outside of 3 inches becomes important. So if you roll a 1 on the mysterious landscape, congratulations, you've got Damned. What is Damned? At a very high level, the feature is all about getting +1 to hit to your rolls for that unit. So my free guild handgunners would get +1 to hit. However, to activate that ability, they must suffer D3 mortal wounds. So within the terrain feature, I want to elect that I'm going to take the D3 mortal wounds in order to gain +1 to my hits in both the shooting phase and the combat phase. The range is 3 inches, and the benefits are going to be I get +1 to my shooting, +1 to my melee, it's going to apply in both my phase and my opponent's phase. So if I'm worried about being charged, I can kind of get some benefits and then prepare to dish out some wounds as well. If I have a mortal wound save, I can take that with that D3 roll. And finally, it also can be taken for monsters and heroes. So for example, my Terrorgeist normally hits on a 4+. I could take that D3 mortal wound save against my Terrorgeist, and it's now going to be hitting on 3s and instead of hitting on 4s. So that's a huge difference when it comes to some of its abilities and some of its damage. So highly recommend getting those hits up and getting more dice through. It is worth noting though that this is an optional feature. Just because my handgunners are sitting next to the terrain piece doesn't mean I have to take it. So this is the only one of 6 that is actually an optional feature. If I roll a 2, it's Arcane. At a very high level, Arcane gives me +1 to casting and +1 to unbinding rolls for the wizard. The range is 3 inches from the terrain piece, so this is obviously going to be important in the hero phases, especially if I want to start dispelling my opponent's spells. And then the benefits really are going to be is that multiple wizards can benefit from the +1. So if I'm a Tzeentch army or I've got a bunch of wizards in my army, I might want to deploy all my wizards within 3 inches of this terrain piece. This can be a very strategic terrain piece for early game buffs if you want to get Mystic Shield off early, or maybe if you want to deny your opponent from getting some of those spells like those Mystic Shields and Arcane Bolts off. Wonderful to also stop to deny your opponent, even if you don't have a mage or a wizard. If you do have the privilege of having spells that have high casting rolls, or maybe you unlock additional benefits by rolling a 10 or 11 or a 12, this +1 or plus many could actually help you achieve those scores. So if you had a couple of arcane terrain pieces, that actually could make it a lot easier to cast. On a roll of a 3, you got Inspiring. What is Inspiring? Inspiring is going to give your units +1 to their bravery. It is 3 inches from the terrain piece, so you're starting to see an underlying theme of 3 inches as a range. And the key benefits are really going to be to help your bravery. So in a battle shock phase, you're going to get +1 to your save. They're going to make it a lot harder for your units to run away. But it also might make some of your bravery-based attacks easier. So if you've got like a roll a dice, add your bravery, they roll a dice, you're going to get an additional benefit and actually make your spell or make your shooting attack get off a lot easier. If you roll a 4, congratulations, you've got Deadly. Now, Deadly is the only terrain piece that is not beneficial to you in any way. What happens is if you run, charge, or finish on the terrain piece, roll a dice. For every model, they roll a dice. On a roll of a 1, they are dead. On a roll of 2 to 6, they live. No feature, no benefit, 2 to 6, live, 1, dead. The range is the whole terrain piece. Now you might be thinking, that doesn't sound very good. Why would I want this? So first off, it actually could be used as a defensive terrain piece to deter your opponent. So you might want to place some shooting units, for example, behind deadly terrain. They're shooting. If an opponent wants to charge your shooters, it either needs to take them more inches to kind of walk around the terrain piece, or they're going to charge through it, and on a roll of 1, they're going to die. And I've had the privilege of seeing some pretty interesting units die, including Gordrak, who I believe is about 600 points. So that one out of 6 roll can be pretty deadly. On a roll of a 5, congratulations, you have Mystical. You have the most scary terrain piece in most opponents' mind, but also the terrain piece that I most love. And that sounds a little bit weird, but what does it do? For every unit within range, and the range is 3 inches, you roll a dice for that unit. If they roll a 1, they are befuddled and they cannot do certain things. They cannot be selected to cast a spell, they cannot move, they cannot attack until the next hero phase. So if they have maybe an ability, for example, that within a 6-inch radius they give +1 save or they give +1 attack, and it's an ability, that still comes out. But for things like attacking, for things like casting or dispelling, they would not be able to do so. On a roll of 2 to 6, that unit can re-roll their failed wound rolls, and that's massive. Think about shooters, for example. Think about combat in both your turn and your opponent's turn. It could be very, very beneficial. So if you think about the benefits are really going to be you're re-rolling your to wound roll in both shooting and combat, and potentially in your turn and your opponent's turn. Abilities can still be used if they are befuddled. And then finally, if you think about a 1 in 6 chance, you have an 83.33% chance of passing that roll. So it's nothing to be concerned about. To me, it's only upside. When you roll a 6 on Mysterious Landscapes, congratulations, you have Sinister. Sinister really is when the unit starts off within 3 inches of the terrain piece, they are going to cause a -1 bravery to enemies within 3 inches. So the benefits are really going to be, it helps you make bravery-based attacks potentially easier. So if you cause -1 bravery, it's going to help. It's going to make your opponent's battle shocks harder to pass. But also it's going to be very, very useful for things like elite armies where, if I'm playing against an Iron Jaws or a Stormcast and I can cause -1 to their bravery, it just means that it's going to make it so much easier for them to flee. Or if they do flee, I'm going to get more flees than I normally would. So, big tick from me when it comes to Sinister. So you've rolled up your 1 out of 6 and you've got Inspiring, you've got Deadly, you've got all these guys. But how do I remember what's what? So there's a couple of different options I could recommend. The first one is going to be things like tokens. So you can buy tokens either from the Games Workshop War Scrolls. You can buy tokens from third-party vendors. You could potentially just mark it up with dice. So have a different set of dice that kind of sits on each terrain piece and reminds you what is what. What I personally prefer is from a website from the Grand Alliance, or Ben Curry, who runs the Bad Dice podcast. He actually put out this set of dice called the Scenery Dice. He does a range of other dice that work with, Mystic Shields and pluses to attack and reroll saves and all these beautiful things. But for me, the 3 key benefits are going to be generating what it's going to be. I can then mark up the dice and actually just have it sitting on the terrain piece. It clearly says Arcane or Sinister, so as the game progresses, I remember what is what. And then finally track it through the game. So if I'm trying to consciously avoid the deadly terrain, I can clearly see the deadly terrain mark and I don't have to remember what number it was in the system. So I hope you're feeling a bit more comfortable and confident in incorporating the mysterious terrains or landscapes into your game. I was very resistant at first. I slowly built up my muscle by adding 1, 2, or 3 into my first set of games, and then eventually I'm now doing all 12 pieces of terrain, or however many pieces of terrains on the table. I will roll them all for mysterious landscapes. It's a wonderful element to the game, chock full of surprises. When things go your way, you sing and dance. If things go against you, and there's been plenty of times where my guys at a critical moment has failed a mystical test, it's definitely one of those heroic stories that I could tell in future, for future gamers and for future events, and have a bit of a laugh along the way. So highly recommend you encourage you bring them into your game. So that's it, hobbyists. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If I've missed something, or maybe you've got a comment to share, or maybe an insight you want to provide to us, leave it in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you want to stay across future videos. Until next time, see you on the hobby table.